So we can touch it, hover, and tools come out of that. Now the next item is a recorder object. You're going to see essentially line strings generated by way of that template. And it comes down to a few things. The feature definition, largely, the CAD manager is largely responsible for kind of architecting that and forecasting. Like, we always draw ditch lines. Why don't I make it so we don't have to? Things like that. Takes a little bit of time. If we look at the next item over here on the right, the template drop. The template drop is this dashed magenta line work. And if we notice in the very bottom, it has a handle. So on every template drop, there are handles that stick out at the beginning and the end. Whereas the corridor handles iterate all the way down the project. So just be aware of the different types of handles. We'll be touching some of those. So just page 13 can be helpful. Especially if we're talking to you on the phone. We're like, can you pick corridor handle? And then you know what we're talking about. All right, so now we've got our line work generated, and just to hover, you can see there's one of those handles, that cyan little handle sticking out on the side. But what we're going to go ahead and do here is we're actually going to select the corridor. So it doesn't really matter. I want to come over and grab this handle myself. So I'm going to select that by left-clicking. Notice I'm left-clicking on it. If I look in the bottom bar of MicroStation, that's the bottom of MicroStation, on the right-hand side, you're going to see there's an arrowhead that says 1. That's in my selection set because I selected it and put it in there. So, by left-clicking on the item, it adds it here. Just want to make sure you have one item selected. Now, while that's selected, and this is always funny, does anybody know what the circle on the arrow is called of your mouse? We should all know this. The circle on the actual mouse, on the arrow. What is that? Oh man. Let me ask the pro. You know what the circle is called? Oh, it's the locate tolerance, guys. If you guys go on your preferences, locate tolerance is how big or small the circle is. The bigger the circle is, the more elements it seeks within that. When you left click, when you're trying to click, click, click to grab the right thing, or it's actually right click. So locate tolerance. So that little circle is important because that circle has to go back on the selected element. Yeah, locate tolerance. It's in your preferences.
Use your preferences. Input.
So when we put that circle on a selected element, and it took me forever in the beginning to figure, I'm like, why is the toolbar coming and going? It disappeared on me. So what you need to be aware is that it's a combination to bring that toolbar out. You have to pick the object and then hover over it again with that circle, and you'll always get the toolbar. Guaranteed. Now, when that toolbar comes up, you can see it's what we call a context-sensitive menu. So it's looking at the actual content that you selected, and it's understanding the tools. So it's bringing the tools to you, so you don't have to go look through the ribbon and go, which one of these tools do I use? Oh, I'm going to go do a search. I'm going to do all this. No, we're bringing the tools to you for that particular object. Now, that goes across all of OpenRoads. So you can take a geometry class. It's the same thing. So that's just generally how the context menu works. We bring the right tools to you when you interact with it. So, are you noticing something as I'm going through corridor modeling? All the heads-up stuff? That's where we're putting all the energy. I mean, I've done MicroStation for 30-something years now. I'm going to tell you, I don't do it the same way I did 30-something years ago. Every time it's changed, I've changed with it. So these dialogues, I kind of giggle sometimes when people are like, oh, I got to fill out the toolbox, and I'm like, or where are my toolboxes or my dialogues? I'm like, man, get those bell bottoms off and get some like modern clothes. You're doing stuff old. So you gotta get with the times. So anyhow, notice that context menu comes up. And if you like bell bottoms, I'm sorry. I do. Yeah, when you're on stage, right? Okay. So now, as I move my mouse closer to that dialogue, notice it gets subdued if I move away, and it gets bold as I move closer. Just like in Office, as you interact with the tools within Microsoft Office. Now, what I'd like to do is go to this very leftmost icon. It's denoted by an I with a little white piece of paper. It's our information or our properties dialog. In the context menu, it's actually called Quick Properties, and there's a reason. it does not show everything the normal properties dialog does. It's focused to just a few things. So if you really like the properties dialog, you can do it that way as well. One thing to note, if you leave properties and Explorer open, you're gonna have a bad time because it eats up your resources. So notice I don't have it open. It's not on my screen yet. I don't need it. So if you're the one that's like, I like it how it is, and you put everything on your, no, it's not gonna work anymore. And if you're like, well, I just don't know where it's at, well, trust me, after a week, you'll know where it's at. I certainly figured it out. So if we look here, I wanna come back to where we began. On that dialog, you'll see there's a section called Feature Definition, and it's set to something called Conceptual. Now, on this is going to control the level of detail that we are applying to the model. And it's going to seem a little confusing. Remember I had key in 10? That was that interval.
If you key in 10.
When we keyed in the value 10 earlier. So when we keyed in that value of 10 earlier, if you were to take a measurement on my model, and I'm just going to kind of point at it here. If we look at these black lines coming across, you'll notice they're not every 10 feet. They're every 100 feet. Why? Well, this has to do with the feature definition, and it's got an ability to change the multiplier. And we actually have, in our feature definition at Bentley, the example, we said, look, when it's in concept, make a real raw looking one. We know what the destination needs to be, but let's try to make the best use of performance. Let's try to trim it down so it's lighter, it's faster. And then you know what? You can just change speeds later. So we're going to increase level of detail here. And so if I come in, what I'm going to go ahead and do is increase that. So I'm going to select this, hover, go to that quick properties again, and under my feature definition where it says conceptual, I just want to show you, if I switch this to something, say, like design, my model is going to get more detailed. It's always been at 10. We're just not calculating it. That's all that does. Trust me, I love it. I always switch it to conceptual, do all my work, and then flip the switch back and go, oh, okay, cool. And that's how I do it. I don't want to sit and make it wait 10 times longer to calculate all that math. So I want to reduce that and make it run a little faster. Now, another item is we can come in on the quick properties again. I'm going to select and hover on that again. I want you to notice we have the use active profile. Let's say Scott tells me later, oh, don't use that profile that's active. Why? Why would you do that to me, right? Well, there's a different one.
It was preliminary design.
He's not done with it. Yeah, he's still working on it. So, in this instance, I might need to change speeds here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a cool MicroStation trick you probably didn't know. So, this pull down, don't click it. All right?
Click it.
The title, double click it. Notice it switched from true to false. In MicroStation, across the board for all those dialogues, all the pull downs, true, false, yes, no, on, off, 1, 0, whatever you want, any binary type, when you switch, it just flips to the opposing one. So how many of us have picked a pull down, our mouse moved and it went back, and you know, went back to the thing, I gotta do it again. So it's just faster. That is a pet peeve of mine. You're showing me something, I'm like, whoa, 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 stop. What's the thing you just did? Let's go back, I wanna show you, double click that. And then I'm trying to get everybody to use the faster little tips. So that's a cool little tip there. But notice when I switched it to false, the profile name is now selectable. So it's looking at all the other profiles that Scott's got. So I can quickly get off of an active profile if I need to. We can refine it. And of course we can go back to the active profile. And so, which one did you have me pick here? You say set it to false. Which one did you set that on, Scott? Active profile to false. Set it to false. Set the desired profile. Yeah, if you need to. So you can pick a different one. So if I picked a different one, switch. Let's come back, toggle the use active profile back to true. We'll lock it back down. But just be aware that's a capability.